That is the youth and the teenage years of Comrade Jeff Masimula, like it was of mine. I was born 1945, 3 months after the World War ended. So through our entire lives, we lived through the system of oppression. What were the proposed solutions coming from our political organizations? I cannot go through all of them. I have to touch the major points on what we were fighting against and also what we are fighting for. And why is it that things went so horribly wrong after 27th April 1994? We talk about decolonization and we give examples of it. Tear down the head of Cecil John Rhodes, or change the syllabus, teach a different history. But it's important to note, before we can be deceived, we need to be gullible. And before we can be colonized, we must be colonizable. How did we become colonizable? And that itself speaks to almost 300 years of the slave trade preceding the colonization of Africa, the Far East, and the Americans. Prescribed reading, prescribed obviously by Comrade Jeff Masimula and other teachers we had with us from the Pan-Africanist Congress, I will mention them later, was Black Mother by Basil Davidson. It should still be read. Basil Davidson says that, conservatively speaking, 100 million Africans were taken over to the so-called New World. 100 million. Dear mothers and sisters, think of all the 100 million mothers who gave birth to those slaves. I just indicated 56 million were killed during the Second World War. This is double that amount were taken as slaves. 1/3, Basil Davidson estimates, died in the crossing over to the so-called New World. Now, we cannot build a system, and especially a social system, that is based on, firstly, an error, a mistake, and especially not if it is built on a lie. The lie was that the African continent is inhabited by people who either have no religion or who have the wrong religion. That was the argument. It was the argument in America as well as in South America. The 3 stages of this conquest, starting with slavery, then with colonialism, occupying the territory, enforcing the laws with the army and police, and thirdly, as a form of imperialism, where they control our governments through neocolonialism, and they control our resources through imperialist fronts. the multinational companies. When somebody asks me, how can we strengthen democracy in South Africa, my short reply is, it does not exist in South Africa. How do you strengthen something which doesn't exist? The apartheid government coming into power in 1948 in May, the same year that the State of Israel was established and its existence endorsed by this very United Nations that furnished us on the 10th of December 1948 with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, synthesized three forms of government. And those three forms of government still persist until this day. One, a kakistocracy, which means nothing to do with Afrikaans. It's a Greek word, and it's spelled K-A-K, kakistocracy. It means government by the worst citizens. How else would you describe a slave trader? The second form of government, which they introduced under colonialism, a history of corruption under grand apartheid, edited by Van Vieren, is kleptocracy, government by thieves. They didn't steal gold or diamonds, they stole continents. To give you some idea of how big the theft was, you look at the map of Africa, what is now known as the Democratic Republic of the Congo, was formerly called Zaire. It is, please fasten your seatbelts, 10 times the size of Great Britain, and it is 3 times the size of France. One country in Africa. And if you compare the size of South Africa, Nigeria, Algeria, Sudan, Chad, and Egypt, you know what I'm talking about. So this is the development of underdevelopment. We cut off your legs and your arms, and then we ask you, why can't you swim? We cut off your head and we ask you, why can't you think of better solutions? I do not want to refer today to the genocide that took place at the Maji Maji rebellion in Tanganyika, 1905, 1907. The genocide against the Hereros and other people in what was called German West Africa, now called Namibia. This is the cynicism of those who gave us this day called International Human Rights Day. One of the worst things that they taught here and in the diaspora, in the West Indies, in America, forget that you are an African, but remember you are a black. I hope that sinks in to many people who are promoting this idea that black lives matter. Any sane Pan-Africans here or in the diaspora will simply say, all life is sacred. And there are no different levels of sanctity. Comrade Jeff Masimula, as a founder of the Pan-Africanist Congress of Tanzania, way back in November 1959, obviously understood that. I repeat, forget that you are an African, but remember that you are black. A person I admired in my early life by the name of Malcolm X, he also said in lectures I've watched over and over again, he says, we were black before we were Christians. We were blacks before we were Muslim. We were blacks before we were Jews. So I said very quietly, and I've met Malcolm X's daughter in Geneva 2010. Under my breath I said, Malcolm, don't talk nonsense. Because we were human before we were blacks. Comrade Steve Biko, who was also murdered in detention, he died a very, very brave death, defying his oppressors. When he spoke about black consciousness, it was not consciousness of being black. It was consciousness of the blacks, and the blacks meant all the oppressed people of the world. Okay. Get that difference. It's very important. Then comes, how did we land up only commemorating certain events long after the expiry date? Very simple. Educators, university lecturers, members of parliament, government, ministers, there's a concept called epistemicide, the killing off of knowledge. And if that doesn't work, you kill off the producers of knowledge. And this is where